As the years pass, life presents enough real battles to face. The stiffness in your knees each morning, the medications lined up on the counter, the silence in a home that once felt full. But the hardest part of aging isn't the body changing. It's the mind turning every small uncertainty into a storm. A simple ache becomes a threat. A quiet evening becomes a reminder of who's no longer here. A forgotten appointment, a missed call, a strange symptom. Suddenly they feel like warnings, like signs that something terrible is coming. And the cruel truth, most of the pain you feel never actually happens in the world around you. It happens in the world within you. Your mind can pull you back to every regret you wish you could undo. It can drag you into a future filled with fears that may never arrive. It can replay old losses so vividly that they feel new again. Your mind doesn't wait for life to hurt you. It knows how to hurt you all by itself. And as you grow older, the mind grows louder. It fills the long nights with worry. It fills the silence with imagined danger. It fills the future with shadows of things that might never come. But here's the truth, most people never learn. Your suffering isn't created by age, or loneliness, or circumstance. It's created by the stories your mind tells when it's left unattended. To understand why life feels heavier with age, and why the simplest moments can suddenly feel overwhelming, we must step into the place where 90% of your problems are born, your mind. One, the mind amplifies everything it fears. As the body slows with age, the mind often does the opposite. It speeds up. It races into places your feet will never walk. It creates dangers you may never face, and it builds entire stories out of nothing more than silence. A quiet phone becomes a sign of abandonment. A strange ache becomes a diagnosis. A single lonely evening becomes a prophecy of a lonely life. It's not because you're weak. It's because the mind becomes louder when the world becomes quieter. Fear grows best in silence, and aging gives it plenty of room to bloom. Monks say, fear paints the future with shadows that don't exist. They learn this early, in the cold forests, in the empty meditation halls, in the long nights where the only sound is their own breathing. When the world is quiet, the mind becomes a storyteller, and not always a kind one. For most people, especially as they grow older, the mind stops responding to the present and begins reacting to memory. It remembers the heart attack a friend had. It remembers the parent who passed suddenly. It remembers the betrayal from decades ago. It remembers every moment when life shifted without warning. So when something small happens, a dizzy spell, a forgotten word, a night of loneliness, the mind rushes to protect you the only way it knows how, by imagining the worst. But here is the painful irony. The mind isn't trying to harm you, it's trying to shield a version of you that no longer exists. The younger self who didn't yet understand loss, aging, or uncertainty. Your mind is still fighting battles that ended years ago. A monk once told a student, "Fear is a ghost wearing the clothes of your past. Bow to it, and it disappears." This is why monks spend years learning to see fear clearly. Because once you see it, it shrinks. Once you name it, it loses its teeth. Once you breathe with it, it stops controlling your breath. But most people never learn this skill. They age without ever learning how to calm the mind that ages them. And so the mind paints the worst-case scenario out of habit, not truth. It becomes hypersensitive, scanning every detail for danger because it remembers the dangers you survived. It doesn't realize that you're wiser now. It doesn't realize that you're stronger now. It doesn't realize that you're no longer living in the moment. It fears. Your fear is outdated, but your mind hasn't received the update. Fear is only half the story, though, because the mind doesn't just amplify what it fears, it also amplifies what remains unresolved. Every regret that was never spoken aloud, every grief you buried instead of grieving, every disappointment you pushed aside so you could keep going, all of it sits inside the mind like old dust, and fear sticks to it like glue. As we age, the mind clings harder to the past because it wants answers, protection, and closure. And when it can't find them, it creates problems to fill the space. What the mind can't heal, it repeats. Fear explains why the mind feels chaotic, but it doesn't explain why the chaos keeps returning. To understand that, we must look at the part of ourselves we rarely visit. In the past, we never healed. 2. The truth you avoid is the pain you live in. There are wounds we speak about openly, and then there are the wounds that never make it into words. The disappointment you swallowed to keep the peace. The loneliness you hid because you didn't want to be a burden. The fear of aging you pretended not to feel. The guilt that surfaced late at night when no one was watching. For decades, many people carry these things silently, quietly tucking them under the rug of their mind. But here's the brutal reality. Buried pain doesn't disappear. It mutates. It turns into the tightening in your shoulders when you think of the past. It becomes a knot in your stomach when you worry about the future. It becomes the sigh you let out before you even realize you're tired. It becomes the heaviness that sits on your chest without explanation. Unfelt sadness doesn't fade. It ferments. Monks say, the truth you avoid becomes the stone you carry. And they're right. If you've ever wondered why the same memories haunt you, why the same emotions keep returning, why the same fears whisper at night, it's because unprocessed truth grows roots. Imagine carrying a backpack for 60 or 70 years. Every betrayal, every loss, every regret, every unspoken hurt, you toss it inside thinking you'll deal with it later. But later becomes decades, and the backpack becomes your posture, your breathing, your mood, your exhaustion. You're not tired because you've lived too long. You're tired because you've carried too much alone. Monks confront truth in silence, not because they enjoy discomfort, but because silence reveals what pretending tries to hide. In the monastery, there is a practice called shikantaza, just sitting, no chanting, no distractions, just you and the truth. For many people, especially those who have lived long enough to accumulate a lifetime of emotional dust, sitting still is terrifying. Because the longer you sit, the louder the truth becomes. The truth about the apology you never received. The truth about the goodbye you never got to say. The truth about the parent you lost. The truth about the children who grew distant. The truth about the life you imagined but never lived. Silence isn't empty, it's honest. That honesty can feel like a storm at first. It shakes old memories loose. It pulls forgotten emotions to the surface. It forces you to acknowledge what you've pushed away. But monks understand a secret most of us were never taught. The truth only hurts until it is seen. Once you face it, it begins to dissolve. One Zen teacher said, "The truth will set you free, but first it sits across from you and refuses to leave." And that is exactly why avoiding pain keeps it alive. Running from truth gives it power. Suppressing it strengthens it. Ignoring it makes it louder. Pain unacknowledged becomes pain repeated. Look at your life. It's the anxieties that return, the loneliness that lingers, the guilt that resurfaces. These aren't new wounds. They're old truths knocking on the door, asking to be felt, released, forgiven. And once the truth is finally seen, clearly, honestly, without running, something remarkable becomes possible. The heart opens, the grip loosens, and the next step begins: release. 3. Letting go is the most radical change you can make. There comes a moment in life, usually after 60, when the weight of the past finally becomes louder than the present. Not because you choose to think about it, but because it's the only thing that hasn't changed. The people you love grew older, some left, some forgot, some simply stopped calling. Life shrank, but the memories stayed full size. The disappointments, the betrayals, the "I should have," they become a second heartbeat, one you never asked for. But here's the truth monks understand better than anyone. You can't carry the past and walk into the future at the same time. Every old wound you grip is a new wound you create. Letting go is not forgetting. Letting go is unclenching. It's releasing the death grip you've had on moments that no longer exist. The arguments you replay, the words you wish you'd said, the love you wish had stayed. A Zen master once compared holding onto the past to carrying a burning coal. You can squeeze it tighter if you want, but the fire won't pity you. And yet we hold on, because holding feels safer than emptiness. Pain may be heavy, but at least it's familiar. Letting go feels like stepping into a room without furniture. Nothing to lean on, nothing to blame, nothing to hide behind. Especially for people over 60, letting go can feel impossible. You've lived long enough to collect a lifetime of unresolved chapters, but monks teach the opposite. The longer you've lived, the more sacred letting go becomes, because releasing the past is how you return to yourself. You don't lose your identity when you let go. You finally find the part that grief was covering. In Zen monasteries, letting go is a daily ritual. Monks sweep the same courtyard every morning, not because it's dirty, but because sweeping teaches them to clear what no longer serves the mind. Every stroke of the broom says, "This moment is gone, let the next one come." Imagine living like that at 60 or 70, not dragging yesterday into today, not clutching the memories that bruise you, but waking up light again. Letting go frees your heart. It makes room for breath. It unburdens your shoulders. It gives your body permission to relax, sometimes for the first time in decades. You don't age because years pass. You age because you cling to what life already asked you to release. Think about how many moments still live inside you. The apology you never received, the child who pulled away, the partner who didn't choose you back, the version of yourself you wish you had been. These ghosts live rent-free, and you pay the price in anxiety, insomnia, heartache, and overthinking. Letting go doesn't erase these stories. It simply tells them, you're free to leave now, and so am I. One monk told his students, your hands cannot hold the present if they're still gripping yesterday. At 60, 70, even 80, this truth becomes even sharper, because the years you have left deserve spaciousness, not suffocation. The past can be a place you visit, not a place you live. When you release what's already gone, something shifts inside you. Your breath deepens, your shoulders drop, your mind stops circling the same old memories like a bird trapped in a room. And in that fresh inner space, the space created by release, something powerful can finally grow. Intention. 4. Intention rewrites your reality. Once the emotional clutter begins to clear, something remarkable happens inside you. The mind, which once felt like a battlefield, becomes quiet enough to hear itself again. Thoughts soften, breathing slows, decisions no longer feel like heavy doors you have to force open. Life stops pushing you, instead, it invites you. This is the moment monks call the fertile mind, when the soil of your inner world is finally rich enough for new seeds to grow. But here's the truth, most people never learn until late in life. Your outer world doesn't change first, your inner direction does. Your life won't feel new until your thoughts stop repeating the old. At 60, 70, 80, intention becomes the most powerful tool you have. You've lived enough life to know pain, but you've also lived enough to recognize that pain isn't the only truth. You still have a choice, not in what happens, but in how you move through it. Monks say, what you plant inside grows outside. This isn't poetry, it's instruction. Because intention isn't positive thinking, it's alignment. It's choosing the direction your mind will face each morning. When you wake up and think, I am alone, your body shrinks inward. When you think, I am forgotten, your heart closes a little more. When you think, my best years are behind me, you stop looking for beauty right in front of you. But when you wake and whisper, I choose peace, your nervous system listens. When you say, I am still becoming, your spirit rises. And when you think, I deserve softness, your life begins to soften around you. Your thoughts are not reactions, they are instructions. There's a Zen story about an old monk who tended a dying tree outside his hut. Every day he watered it, whispered to it, and placed his hand on its trunk. A visitor asked why he cared for a tree that clearly had no life left. The monk smiled and said, it will die if I stop believing in its growth. Most people stop tending to themselves as they age. They stop expecting joy, stop expecting new chapters, stop expecting healing. And when belief stops, the spirit withers, not because life is over, but because intention has gone missing. Your reality doesn't shrink with age. It shrinks when you stop choosing direction. Intention doesn't mean forcing positivity. It means choosing the shape of your mind. Instead of focusing on loneliness, you choose connection, even if it's just with yourself. Instead of replaying regrets, you choose presence, even if it's imperfect. Instead of predicting decline, you choose curiosity, even if life feels slower now. And slowly the world responds. Small joys become brighter. Conversations feel warmer. Your body feels lighter. Your nights feel less heavy. This is what monks practice every day. Not escape, not denial, but chosen intention. Because they understand something we often forget. Life bends toward the direction your mind leans. You don't need a new life. You need a new inner compass. At your age, intention becomes your compass, guiding your mornings, shaping your evenings, creating meaning in spaces that once felt empty. And when honesty has shown you your truth, when release has softened the heart, when intention begins to guide your days, there is one final step. The step that brings all of this together and transforms not just your mind, but your entire life. Life does not soften simply because years pass. It softens the moment you do. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because your inner world stops fighting itself. When you release the heaviness you've been carrying for decades, the world no longer feels so sharp. When you let old stories fall away, the present finally has room to breathe. When you stop expecting pain and start choosing peace, life responds in ways you thought were no longer possible at your age. Your outer life is only ever a reflection of the world you build inside. Maybe no one told you this, but it's never too late. Not at 60, not at 70, not at 85, to rewrite the way your mind meets the world. Because when the inside shifts, the outside cannot stay the same. Your relationships soften, your body relaxes, your mornings feel lighter. Your future stops looking like something to fear. Monks say, change the way you see, and what you see changes. And for many people, especially in the later years of life, this isn't poetry, it's liberation. The day you choose to change your inner world is the day your real life finally begins. So tonight, instead of replaying the past or worrying about tomorrow, place your hand gently on your heart and whisper, I am rebuilding my inner world, one thought at a time. And if this message touched something deep in you, I invite you to stay connected. Reflect. What part of your inner world needs healing right now? Comment. Share one truth you're ready to face. Subscribe. Join this community of people healing from the inside out. Share. Someone you know might need this reminder tonight. Because the greatest transformation of your life won't happen outside your body, it will happen inside your mind. And once your inner world changes, your entire life will rise to meet it.